Thank you for joining me again. Today I want to talk about one of the main communication tools that has become so widespread, I would classify it as ambient abuse. While not specific to women and women only, the loaded question is a rhetorical device that creates a lot of discord and conflict in communication, and it is a main method of perpetuating the gender war. It's often presented in a comedic fashion in media like movies and television shows, but it has a very predictable flow that you can see demonstrated on almost a daily basis if you interact with people on even a general social level, let alone intimate relationships. Media presents this rhetorical device in a comedic frame in order for you to adopt it as acceptable and useful in your daily life. But it is a form of verbal aggression that directly contributes to larger problems of physical violence in our society, especially when it comes to women aggressing against men. Let's degender the issue for just a moment and look at an example of how two men interact while one of them is using verbal aggression in order to gain the upper hand against the other.
You killed two people and you wounded a third. How do you feel about that?
Well, Pierce, they attacked me. They left me with no choice. I have nightmares every night of being attacked and being ambushed and them trying to steal my gun and pointing guns at my face. It's not an easy thing to do, but I did what I had to do to stay alive, and if I didn't, I would be dead.
Yeah, listen, you were acquitted, and many in America believe that you had the absolute right to defend yourself. I'm just curious, on a human level, you're very young even now. What are you, 20 years old now?
Yes, sir.
And you've killed two human beings and wounded a third. I just wonder how that feels.
I don't think that's an appropriate question to ask how it feels. It's not an easy thing to do. It's something I live with every single day. It's nightmares I have. It's something that I have to deal with. I have to deal with the PTSD and the trauma from having to do that.
Right, but it seems to me your emotions are more about you and your trauma because your life has been threatened and that side of it, rather than the question I'm asking, which is simply on a human level, how do you feel about being so young and yet having on the record for the rest of your life now that you took the lives of two people, regardless of the circumstances?
And like I just said, it's something I deal with every day. I deal with the PTSD and the trauma and the nightmares. It's not easy to deal with it.
This clip was a very good example of how to properly handle a loaded question. Most people dissolve into argumentation. When you hear women talk about getting tired of talking and having to resort to more extreme measures, it's probably because they were relying on things like loaded questions and other forms of verbal aggression in order to get their point across. I wonder how many women notice that all of their relationships with the opposite sex especially tend to follow along this same pattern of competitiveness, combativeness, argumentation, and if they ever wonder where does it come from. The reality is you were trained to be this way by the school system and your socialization circle. You were given positive reinforcement and rewarded for performing this way, even though it hasn't led to any positive outcomes in any level of relationships with the opposite sex. Never mind that there should be a strict segregation between the sexes, that's for another video, but the point still stands. The way that we have been conditioned to communicate is not helpful for our individual relationships or society at large. And the only way to resolve this issue is to start with ourselves. That means developing some self-accountability, some self-awareness, and some personal responsibility and realizing that the way you've been trained to communicate has a negative effect, and it is for a purpose. Otherwise, you're just going to continue going down the same road and repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again, and assuming that it's someone else's fault. I hope this video has been helpful and a little thought-provoking for at least one person out there. I don't have a ton of views yet, but I would appreciate it if you like, share, and subscribe. Share it with a friend. Talk to you later.